Welcome, welcome, welcome. We're going to take a look at another game from the Polish First League, the Polish Ekstraliga, and this time I was playing with the white pieces against Bartlomiej Heberla, rated 25-52, and we're going to dive right into it. Let me turn on the engine and let's go. I was a bit surprised by his choice here, the Petrov, and did not really prepare this in a lot of detail. So knight c3, this is one of the main lines currently and quite suits my style. As we will see, we have a position with opposite castled kings and potential to attack. So this is a very popular line, to my surprise I have to say, because there are a lot of dangerous tries or attempts that white has. As I was not prepared for this line, I chose a very solid one where I knew kind of as an idea, as we'll see. We're actually following the 11th game of the World Championship 2018, Carlsen versus Karana. This was the line here, and it went straight to the end game. This is what we did in this game as well. And I knew about an idea here with h3 and g4. But for some reason I thought that first white goes bishop c3, which is incorrect. The idea is to immediately go h3 to play g4, and black has to answer some questions. The position looks really harmless, but it's not as harmless as it looks. Often white can get something if black isn't accurate. However, on the board I mixed it up and played bishop c3 first. And this is a good reminder for myself and also for you guys, if you are playing in a game and you are somewhat half remembering your opening preparation or your opening lines, then it's better to just think over the board and spend the time to just figure out what you think is the best move rather than half remembering, because how we will see in this game, I could have pretty much, had a not so great position right from the get-go if my opponent had responded correctly. Here already knight g4 is possible, by the way, which h3 would have prevented. But my opponent played h6, now h3, still following what I think is my preparation, but this is just not correct here. Rook a8, and now I confidently played g4, which probably helped that I was confident in this, because my opponent didn't play the most natural move here, which he prepared by all means, the move d5, and this is just fine for black, just equalized on the spot, maybe even a bit more comfortable for black already. My intention was to go g5, but this would be really bad, and I probably would have noticed in time, because here black can go knight e4 and black is already better. So I guess my bluff, my unintentional bluff worked, and my opponent did not go for this and played knight e7, after which white is a bit better. So good reminder for myself and also for you guys, don't half remember your opening preparation, just try to figure it out over the board. So here I got away with this. I play bishop e4 now to hit the pawn on b7. And black could take on c4, maybe black should take on c4, but I was arguing I have the slight advantage of the better pawn structure, one pawn island here for me on the queen side, two pawn islands for black, but it shouldn't be that much, it should be very close to equality. My opponent played knight b6 instead, which is also fine. Now I went bishop a5. Pinning the knight and not allowing knight takes c4. Bishop takes c4, and now bishop takes b7. And here bishop b5 might be somewhat of an inaccuracy, small one maybe. It seems it's better to go bishop f6, and if now rook takes e8, rook takes e8, rook takes d6, which would be logical, then black can attack the bishop on b7 first and go after these pawns. Here we see a clear drawback of my move g4, that these pawns are somewhat vulnerable. So this might have been an improvement. Well, bishop b5 is also not a huge mistake, anything like that, but I think it's a bit comfortable, more comfortable for white now. b3, restraining the black pieces, taking away the squares. Rook b8, bishop e4, and now my opponent made a big mistake. You could probably say already losing mistake. He played the move bishop f6. What should black do? Well, this position is already uncomfortable. I was expecting bishop d7. And here, well, white has a number of choices. I was considering knight e5, which is quite interesting. So the point is to go after this bishop. Black should take. Now bishop takes b6. If black takes back on b6 with the pawn, then the rook on d7, that would be very uncomfortable, I think, especially since the light squares are so weakened. So I was calculating bishop takes g4, hitting the rook on d1. Now bishop takes a7, makes sense. Bishop takes d1, bishop takes b8, and bishop takes c2 check. Bishop takes c2, rook takes b8, rook takes e5. And this position seemed a bit better for me. I'm not sure if I were to go for it, but it looks comfortable with the passed a pawn and the bishop finds a good square on c4. White is more active. Not sure. I would have looked at it for sure. White also has other options. But black has to do something like that, for sure. Because bishop f6 doesn't work. Well, here's an exercise for you guys. Stop the video right now and figure out why bishop f6 was not a good move. Well, the obvious move is also the best one. Rook takes d6. But of course my opponent didn't just blunder this pawn. He had an idea. And his idea was to play knight c4. And I hope you saw that before you want to play rook d6. And the question is how to respond to this move. So once again, if you want to, you can stop the video right here. So we shouldn't take this. This would be a big mistake because black goes bishop c6 check, king c1, takes on e4, and now the bishops are very strong. This would be horrible for white. Since both these pieces are hanging, we have to do something, and the something is rook takes f6. G takes f6, and now what? Well, b takes c4 still runs into the same problem, but bishop c7 is possible, and black cannot keep his rook on the b file as all the squares are controlled by the bishops. So my calculation now went rook bc8, and here the point is I can take on c4 and immediately attack another piece by black, the bishop on b5. So this would be just really good for for white, just winning. However, I have to confess that I missed knight e5. And you shouldn't miss such moves. I hope you didn't miss it when you calculate it right now. Because if you miss such a move, then it could also mean you're suddenly worse or lost. In this case, however, I was a bit lucky because white is still winning. Knight takes e5, and here we see the idea. Well, first of all, I cannot take the rook because knight takes f3, the bishop is pinned, and I'm losing, well, more material I was going to say, but it's actually not that bad. I'm losing the exchange, but even here, as you can see, the engine bar is telling us white is not worse, maybe even a bit better. But this is not what I wanted. And knight takes e5 is much better. Here we see the idea after rook c8, both my pieces are hanging. Black's going to get one back, but I will have two pawns for the exchange plus strong bishops. This position is already lost for black. F takes e5. And here there are two ways to pick up this pawn. Either bishop b7 immediately, or I played c4 first. Now bishop c6. If bishop a6, Same story happens here, bishop f5. Well, I was going to say bishop f5. Yeah, this is what I was thinking during the game, but it's actually not as convincing. My opponent should have tried that. I was thinking this position is very promising with one pawn up. It is good, but there is a better continuation just to play bishop d5 and pick up the pawn on e5. I want the pawn on c5, so maybe I should have played this other move in this position, bishop b7. But in either case, white keeps a very big advantage. So my opponent went bishop c6 instead, bishop f5, and now I'm getting this pawn on c5, and I have potentially two passed pawns, connected passed pawns on the queen side. This pawn is hanging, so a6, king c2 makes sense, e4, and here maybe bishop b6 would be easiest. If the rook comes to d3, white is happy to trade one rook to also reduce potential counterplay. And if the rook goes to d6, then just a4 and push the pawns forward slowly, and white should win in the long run. Instead I played bishop e3. This is also fine. King g7, rook g1 first, hinting at the possibility of opening up the position. But it's not as promising, so I play h4 first, rook ed8, and here I made life a little bit more difficult for me. In general, this whole plan here of rook g1, h4 was not too convincing. I should have concentrated on trading one rook first and then just push my pawns on the queen side, because black is not able to generate any counterplay. Now it's a bit more difficult to push the pawns. Here I played h5, instead g5 would be better, so that I can bring my bishop back and push the rook away from this prominent position on d3. So I played h5 instead, once again preparing g5, but black goes f6, stopping that. I thought it would be a good idea to fix this weakness on h6, which the black king now has to defend. Here, however, I took a longer think and I realized it's not that easy to make progress for me. It's not that easy to get my pawns going, because if I play b4, then a bishop comes to a4, and this is not what I want. So I found a good plan, I think, which is rook e1 and to go after this pawn on e4. Rook e1, a5, and now bishop c1, hitting the pawn. And the position is very tough. Computer wants to defend with rook h3. I think white should win in the long run in any case. My opponent, also low on time, made another mistake, and now he actually dropped the pawn on a5 because the rook is hanging and the pawn is hanging. So I'm getting a third pawn, and now I have three connected passed pawns, which is a lot. The time control was reached, 41st move. I played bishop b6 and my opponent resigned because there's just absolutely no counterplay for black, and I can just push my pawns forward, or maybe I can win another one on e4. So this is just completely game over for black. So I was happy with this endgame play, and I found it quite interesting, this idea to sacrifice the exchange. But there were some, as I said, low points, or, well, not so great points about this game. For one, the opening, where I just messed up and gave my opponent a chance to equalize right away, but he didn't take it. And then also missing this move, knight e5, where I was still winning, but that was just, well, kind of luck in the position. If you miss such moves, that could also end badly. So let me know if you saw this continuation with rook takes d6 and rook takes f6, if you calculated it correctly better than I did, in the comments. Let me know if you have any other questions about the game, and if you're not subscribed yet, here's a good chance for you. If you're subscribed, you'll get notified. I think if you also click on the bell or something, and you get notified every time I publish a video, and there will be more videos to come like this one, more game analysis from my recent games. See you guys soon.